What's up, guys? Keegan Hipgrave here. Huge episode here at the Whoop HQ. Today we are talking to world champion and triple crown winner Nicholi Rogatkin. In this episode, we discuss the transition from BMX to professional mountain bike riding, isolation and the importance of mates, and then also overcoming injuries and negative self-talk. Nicholi has this contagious energy to him, and he's incredibly self-confident, and my favorite thing about him is that he never settles for mediocre and he never settles for where he's at. I really enjoyed this episode with Nicholi, so check it out. Welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast. For those who are new to the show, my name is Keegan Hipgrave, and guys, if you haven't already, going to get you to jump over, give us a little like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, whether it's Apple, YouTube, Spotify. It's a great way for us to grow the podcast, grow the platform, and just have some incredible crew like I've got on today. In this episode, I've got professional mountain bike rider Nicholi Rogatkin. How are you, brother?
Amazing. Nice to see you, bro.
Mate, I'm pumped to be here in Boston. Mate, the weather's good. This place is unreal.
For sure, the weather is on point right now. You're not wrong.
Mate, how you feeling? Where are you at the moment? Are you in a heavy training load? Are you talking about doing a bit of media? How you feeling at the moment?
Yeah, I'm chilling now. I'm feeling good. My competition season is over now. I still have some events to go. We have Swatch Nines coming up, which is always a sick event for media and overall vibe and trick level and stuff. And then I'm going to be doing some commentary for Red Bull Rampage. But overall, the competition slopestyle season is done. So
What?
satisfied to be in one piece.
Yeah, man, 100%. Yeah, because I'll relate probably a lot of this conversation back to like rugby league and
Yeah.
back to a lot of sports back in Australia. Because to be honest, man, like mountain bike riding, I'm sure it's probably a thing in Australia, but we don't have a lot to do with it. So I'm
Yeah.
keen to get in the weeds of it, figure it out, talk about your story because man, it's sick. Like it's really cool. You talked about doing a bit of media. Like, is that something that you're keen to lean into, like going forward?
I would love to. It's just a good way to stay in the industry, and I feel like I've had such a fortunate journey in bike riding overall. It gives me kind of a unique perspective in that media world, and I just get so fired up
Yeah.
watching my friends compete and my fellow competitors, and just being able to be fired up on the mic and other in other media situations, getting some personalities revealed with some riders. That's always super
Is it
fun.
is
So.
it different like sitting on the other side of the camera? Because obviously, like you do this professionally, but being on the other side of it, watching mates go through, you're obviously like firing with them when they pull something off. Is that a cool thing?
Yeah, it feels super cool. It's a different type of nerves because you know what they're going through. So you feel like weirdly nervous, even though you don't really have to go out there and perform. I mean, talking, you want to say the right thing, but like just being in that competition atmosphere, I feel like when I'm doing the media for it, I get this like these weird butterflies, these
Yeah.
weird nerves because I'm like, am I dropping in? No, but these guys, like, I know that it's important moments for them, so it's different.
But do you still get the nerves when you're riding now? Like, is it just a different type of nerve?
Completely different.
Yeah.
I feel like when you actually have to compete, there's those like nerves there, but you try to push them down and you try to like be positive about it. Let's get fired up with the guys. Let's do this. This is our time to shine. Like, kind of mask the nerves with the excitement and the motivation and
Mm,
the feelings of like, yeah, see at the bottom. Let's celebrate at the bottom. Kind of like
yeah.
fully manifesting a positive day and not thinking about all those things that could go wrong and the reasons why you're nervous. You know what I mean?
It's kind of almost like it's like a positive reframing type setup. Yeah, man, I love that because it's the first thing I thought it was like fake it till you make it. Like if you like almost fake those emotions and then you'll make it, but you're not almost faking it because it's real. Like you're hyping yourself up, you're getting around the boys, man. That sounds so sick.
For sure. I mean, for me, that's the best way to calm the nerves. Every competitor in a sport that's so individual like this has their own coping mechanisms.
Mm.
I like watching every guy drop in. I like talking with the guys, seeing what mind state they're in, kind of trying to unify almost like as a sports team. Even though we're competing against each other, like it feels like we're kind of attacking it with a team effort.
Yeah.
But there's some riders that like their own space, headphones in, locked in, or like away with their coach or their trainer or a family member or something. Some riders like a more individual, isolated preparation before they drop in. So it's interesting to see those different emotions before we compete.
Have you always been that way to want to be hyped up, wanting to talk to crew, wanting to get around people? Because like I can relate it back to rugby league, footy. Like it's one of our sports back in Australia. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but it's like when I first started, I was like listening to the most heavy music, getting so back to like getting so jacked up. But then like I would get into the game and I'd be cooked because I've used like all this nervous energy, and it wasn't
Yeah.
until like probably back into my career where I was like, okay, no, let's just relax. I'll talk to a few of the boys, like get into it, and then have all this energy for when I was going to play. Were you always that dude that was pumped up, listening to music, getting around the boys, or has that shifted over time?
I've always been that way. I think just because I'm so interested in the actual competition and I love the sport so much that like I can't help it. Like when the guys are dropping in, especially if it's like a close homie of mine, which at this point is basically all the guys that I compete with. It's like I want to watch their run. I want to see how it goes. I want to see them perform, and I want to see if it goes wrong, because those conversations are important. Because the event like takes a while. It's
Mm,
kind of like a sports game. Like things can be kind of a roller coaster.
mm,
So if like a buddy and I are super motivated for the competition, then we both mess up our first runs.
mm.
If we can conversate with each other and being like, "Yo, you look good there. Like you just got to clean that up, and then you got it." And they can like give me some equal feedback. Then we kind of attack the second run together and try to achieve it, because those moments are like a bit hopeless. It's just like being down.
Yeah.
It's like being down in a game where you're like, I don't know if we can beat these guys, man. But then like you get hyped up and they make it happen, you know? So I feel like that aspect just helps get through the competition in a positive way and like just get the best of it for everyone.
Man, I'm keen to talk about the competitions. I'm keen to talk about, the whole career because I'm sure it's probably a bit of a roller coaster, yeah, like as any professional sport is. Before we get into that, kind of want to know what growing up was like because it wasn't always mountain bike riding. Yeah, you started in the BMX world. What was growing up looking like?
So I was very fortunate to get a super young start on the bike. I started at some local dirt jumps.
How old were you? 5, yeah.
My dad was on the bike with me for a couple years, but then I surpassed him. I started trying some crazy shit. So he was like,
Go do what you got to do, brother.
keep up anymore. I can't keep up anymore. Um, but like I said, that starting that early is massive for the development of just like the brain and the body for the sport. So
Why do you think that is?
just feel like when you're young, you're more like open to stuff and careless about stuff, and things can go wrong, and you can still be positive about it, and also like you feel like you have an advantage because like if you watch these kids that are like I don't know 10, 15, and they can be way better than you, but you're like got some years to get.
Yeah.
It's more it like allows you to be more patient with progression,
Mm.
which is important with progression. It's easy to be too eager to progress, and then you try too hard and you're not ready, and then you crash out. You get what I mean?
100%. Because I look at guys and girls in any sport when they start at a super young age, like apply it to any sport like skating, swimming, you know, rugby league, baseball, whatever it is. It's like those guys, they're so much further ahead. Just I don't know what it is. Is it? I think it could be like a playful thing, or maybe like a lack of fear. And I was gonna say lack of fear, but I've seen you on a bike, so I know you've still got that. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but I definitely agree with you, man. Like I think that like the earlier you start, but then also like having a variety of different sports to play. Like I know a lot of gymnasts,
Hmm.
like gymnastics is a really good foundation for like falling, crashing, I
Yeah, I have a
imagine.
huge gymnastics foundation.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Did you do anything other than BMX growing up?
Yeah, I was I mean BMX was kind of the first thing, which is interesting, but then I was also getting into gymnastics and I was heavy on gymnastics, so I was kind of doing both. And then gymnastics was just a bit too serious. I loved the flips.
Yeah.
I loved the theatric aspect of it, but there was a lot of stretching that had to be done, like a
Mm,
lot of stretching, and the practices were super long. We're talking every practice is 4 hours long,
mm,
like proper massive practice, and not like flipping the whole time. Like some parts of it, a lot more grueling than others. Strength training,
mm.
all that stuff. So at some point, when it was like time to get serious with the competition for gymnastics, it was like, no, It's not for me. Let's go into competition with the bike riding.
Gotcha.
But still, all those practices, all that training, all that air awareness learned at such a young age in that gymnastics gym is definitely a massive help for like just the air awareness and like you said, the crashing and stuff now. Like it's massive.
So that helps, like learning how to fall, learning how to crash. Yeah, huge. Even when you were going through the BMX period, like what's it about being on a bike? Because it's like it's a very niche. Well, it's a niche thing from where we come from. I don't know if it was niche for you growing up. Is it something that a lot of your buddies were doing at the time? Like what was the thing about it that really drew you to it?
That's hard to say because it was there were some of my buddies doing it, but just for fun, and also like when I would show up at the skate park. Now that I think about it, like at Woodward camp, um, it was very progressive. Everyone was going there
Yeah.
with the idea of progression and stuff. But if you show up to like the local skate park around here, no helmets, no pads. The kids are kind of just there. There is like a kind of a different attitude where I was coming to the skate park, I'm padded up, I'm ready to flip around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like having access and like spending that time at places like Woodward gave me like a different perspective of what's possible in extreme sports and on the bike. You get what I mean?
Yeah, what was the experience at Woodward like? Because to be honest, mate, like I only just heard of Woodward recently because it's not. It's, I imagine people listening are probably like, man, how do you not heard of Woodward? I'm sure it's like I'm sure it's a big thing. But man, I was looking into it. It looks incredible. Like it's like a summer camp type deal. Like where did that come from?
Yeah, it's full on summer camp.
Yeah.
There is, I mean, it started as a gymnastics camp back in the day, and then they started adding the other sports in, and then it became both. So when I was there, it was like BMX,
Mm.
skateboard, inline rollerblade, and gymnastics. And kind of every rider that was there at Woodward Camp to get better at their riding. Some riders were there to learn a flip
Yeah.
or to do flip combos. Some were just kind of like progressing as beginners,
Mm.
but like everyone was there with the common goal. This week we're going to get better at bike riding and we're going to have fun doing it as a unit. So being able to be at that summer camp at such a young age, I feel like that made me feel like every session that I ride, I'm trying to get better
Yeah.
and I'm trying to like, and we had like instructors there
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
kids are helping each other. And like now when I go to the skate park, like I can't help it. If I see someone doing something and I can give them a tip, I like go straight and give them the tip. So I feel like Woodward is such a building block
Mm.
mentally for me in this sport.
Of all ages. It's not just young crew. It's people up to what's the age bracket?
So you can be a camper up until I think you're 16, 17. But then there's pros there and there's guys that went into jobs at Woodward like as an instructor or as a camp counselor, but they're still shredders, you know?
Yeah.
So the campers were young, but there was riders of all ages there.
Mate, it seems like that would be such a great way to learn. Like, imagine going into an environment where you've got, guys and girls who are absolutely ripping, and you're just like a little sponge with them and just like learning from them. Is that the case? Like, did you learn from crew like that?
For sure, yeah. Just so much learning from crew like that, and also like I was telling you before, because I was so young, getting the ability to do that,
Mm.
it made me feel like I had years to get to the level of these better kids and these pros that I would see competing at X Games and at Do Tour, and then they're there training at Woodward,
Yeah.
and then it just like gave me that visualization of like maybe one day I can be at the level of these guys, you know.
Yeah.
So it's massive building blocks in all senses there.
I find that like having conversations with crew like yourself and people who are super, not just influential, but like really good at their craft. They started young. A lot of them they either a had a lot of success growing up, and then that success was fun. Like it's fun to be good at something, or they worked incredibly hard. They might not have been the best. They might have got a few setbacks and like, nah, I'm gonna stuff this. I'm gonna prove this person or whoever it was wrong. What category do you think you fell in? Do you think you had a natural talent, or is it work hard, or do you reckon it's a combination of the two?
I think it was a combination for sure. Since I was able to do the tricks that I was doing at a very young age, I think I can't deny that there was some natural talent there. Like I was doing flips and spins at age 9, and then I was already doing like flip 360 and double flip at like age 12, 13. But I feel like the work also got put in. I was more on the track of like everything fun, But then my father was very strict. He comes from Russia. When he was training sport, it was biathlon, and the training is just different there.
Yeah,
The mentality is different. Like,
what's a biathlon?
so biathlon is when you cross country race, like running in the summer or skiing in the winter, and then at a certain distance, you get down, you have a gun on your back, and then you shoot a target, and if you miss like the bullseye, then you have to like do extra laps, or you get extra added to your time. So it's just such a grueling sport, like so much endurance involved, but also the composure of like making the shots. It's just like I cannot imagine a more difficult sport mentally and physically.
It sounds it sounds super niche. Is it a niche sport over here in America? 'Cause to be honest, like I heard you say it on a podcast before, and I've never heard of anything like that before. It sounds so American, man. It sounds sick. It's something I probably would enjoy. You know what I mean?
I think it is pretty niche, but in places like Sweden and Russia, like especially with like the skiing portion of it, I think they really attack over there.
But like, talk about learning from good crew. Like, you've got your dad, who's an incredible hard worker. Do you reckon that's where you've got a lot of the traits from, like hardworking and being disciplined?
For sure. Um, I feel like it wasn't even like the hardworking part of it. It was like um, the strict element of it, and like the nothing ever being good enough. You know what I mean? Because as a kid that was doing flips and stuff, was really easy for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm so good. Like, you get what I mean?
Yeah, I know what
But
you
then
mean.
with my father being the way that he was, training wise, it was like, no, you're not good enough. Like, need to be better, need to continue to improve. Like, the only way you can get to the level of these bigger guys if you like keep pushing on it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like I was improving, I was progressing, and I was satisfied with my level, but I had like this figure in my life that made me like unsatisfied with my level.
Mm.
So I got to like keep working on it, keep getting better, which definitely was taxing mentally as a growing kid. Um, but I definitely think it built a lot of mental strength over the years. Get what I mean?
I know what you mean. Do you look back at that time with like positive memories?
Yeah,
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 it helped you get to where you are today.
yeah. Luckily, there's like success associated with those times. You get what I mean? So the times might have been hard. There might have been conflicts between my father and I. There might have been a lot of pushing there and a lot of like overworking in a way. Depending on like if you compare it to like a normal coaching regimen or like a typical like American sport, it's definitely like a lot harder.
Mm.
But then if I think about the accolades that I've achieved over time and like the mental strength that it took to achieve that, it's like that wouldn't have been possible without these hardcore foundation blocks. You get what I mean?
I know what you mean, and
So
I asked the question because I imagine we've got a lot of kids, like
yeah,
a lot of teenagers who listen to this podcast, and myself included, growing up, come from a pretty strict family. You know what I mean? And I know there was times where you're clashing. You know, you're butting heads with your old man or your mum or whoever the authority figure is in the house. And there might be times where you're like, nah, stuff this. Like,
yeah,
what do they know? You know what I mean? And it's cool to hear from you where it's just like, nah, that actually provided like such a great building block and a great foundation to leverage what I'm going to do now. And you look at yourself now. You've had an incredible career. You're doing some really cool stuff. I imagine life like is pretty good at the moment. So it's cool to look back and have that perspective.
for sure. I mean, it also I think makes it easier to look back and have positive memories because there was some like risks that my dad was taking by putting me into this sport and having me travel the way that I did. I was like 13, 14 years old and we're flying to France, to Austria for different shows, for different competitions. So even there might be like a strict aspect of it that makes some parts of it hellish in terms of the
Mm.
training and in terms of the coaching and stuff. But then again, we're having these opportunities to be at these world class events. So I don't know. I feel like there was an upper hand there that made it more enjoyable, despite how difficult the whole training and the whole mentality was with that dynamic.
How do you stay grounded in that environment, being 13, 14? like traveling around the world, I imagine you're probably aligned with some really cool brands. You got your dad with you. You're probably on another level to what people are in your age group. How do you stay grounded? What do you think? What do you think it was?
Um, I just feel like just being like thankful for the opportunity to be in these situations, because um, can be pissed off about it, can be cocky about it. But then if you think about it, it's like not everyone gets to experience or have the opportunity to do these types of things.
Mm.
So you just gotta like considering that, thinking about that, and luckily like that was overshadowing like the feelings of like, oh, I need to be cocky, like I'm,
I'm the man. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I feel like yeah, just seeing because I grew up with kids that were as talented as me, and some of them didn't get those opportunities, or some of them didn't get to pursue, or some of them didn't get those wins and those accolades and learn those tricks that needed to take them to the next level. So just being able to like keep it going and keep the dream alive.
Mm.
I was like, as long as I can keep this dream alive, like I'm super thankful for this life, for these opportunities. You get what I mean?
I know what you mean. What do you think separates the two people? Because I think everyone who has played some sort of sport can see the guys and girls who were killing it when they were younger, but then didn't quite kick on. What do you think separates the crew who go on and actually make it?
Pwah, it's impossible to pinpoint one thing, I think. Um, Sometimes injuries kill people, and sometimes like just continuing to get battered down is also killer.
Mm.
Because there is definitely a bit of ego involved in any sort of competition. You want to go out there and prove that you're the best or that you're better than this or that. And when it doesn't go that way, we don't reach those personal goals, or you have like a performance that's shameful, or hear people saying, "Oh, this guy sucks, so he doesn't have what it takes. He's
Yeah.
just gonna," like that is very defeating. You
Mm.
know what I mean? And for some riders, and some athletes in general, it's just too much, and it's not worth it to keep pushing after getting knocked down so far. Um, which is equally as inspirational to those athletes that do get knocked down super far and then they're able to push back up until they go above. Like those are the really inspirational stories. But just each athlete has their own different story, and
I love I love hearing those stories about the crew who got knocked down, who didn't make the representative team, who didn't get on the brand team, whoever it was, and they just grinded. You know what I mean? And they just grinded it out, and they might have reached it later in life, like in our sport, rugby league or rugby, whatever you want to look at it like. Um, Most guys are making their debut, like their first game at around maybe like early 20s, maybe
mhm.
22, 23. And you see some guys that make it when they're like 27, 28, and then the whole league is like, this guy, like he just went through the whole thing because it's hard, man. You're getting bashed. It's probably similar to riding. Your body might be cooked a fair bit of the time. So I love those stories. Obviously, BMX was such a huge part of your life growing up. At what point did you want to make the switch to mountain bike riding?
There was no real moment that I wanted to make the switch. I was riding these shows at age 13, 14, 15 on BMX,
Mm.
but I was riding with these guys that were competing in slopestyle. Guys like Yannick Grenier, Sam Reynolds, Martin Soderstrom. Those were kind of like the big beasts at the time. I think Andre Lukandegi, um, also during that time. Um, and I was kind of competing in BMX dirt, which is kind of similar to slopestyle, just on a smaller scale, I guess.
Mm.
Smaller bikes and smaller jumps usually and everything. And I was just like, wow, these competitions are so sick. And then at one point, Martin, who was riding for Specialized, helped me get in contact with Specialized and helped me get a bike. And I was still riding the BMX, but I was like, I'm gonna take my time and try to see if I can learn these tricks on my mountain bike and see like how some competitions go.
Just because you were curious?
Yeah, it's because the competitions look so sick.
Yeah.
Competitions like just in the mountains, amazing scenery, amazing course, similar tricks to the BMX except on a little bit bigger of a bike. All these cool features. As I was just like watching it as a younger rider, like
Mm.
this is sick, but it just seemed too gnarly. It just seemed so different. So I definitely needed to like take the time to see if it was possible.
Mm.
And then luckily, Highland Mountain, which is up in New Hampshire, has like a full slope course up there. They used to do Claymore Challenge slopestyle competition up there, which is an iconic competition in slopestyle. So I was able to like go up there and be able to ride an actual slopestyle course, and kind of get that feeling. Um, and then when I was doing my first competitions on mountain bike, I was still riding a lot of BMX actually.
How old were you then?
I would say 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
I think age 17 is when I tried my first competition on mountain bike, and then age 18 was the first time I did like a full season
Gotcha.
on mountain bike.
Gotcha.
Um, but there was like a bit of time where I was competing at both, and there was actually this one competition. This is I think where it crossed the line.
Yeah.
So there I had this one competition where I took both bikes. They had a BMX park competition and a mountain bike slopestyle competition. It was this competition, Omar Skino in Vigo, Spain. So I took both bikes. I was like, I'll compete in the BMX, and then I'll compete in the mountain bike. So I was doing like practice here and there, qualifying here and there. Then we had like finals for BMX, and then finals for slopestyle.
Yeah.
So I got my BMX, I ride finals, I do okay. Change, get ready for slopestyle, get up to the slopestyle. I think I heard that while I'm about to drop in, I heard that I'm like finished like fourth in BMX, and then I drop in for slopestyle, and then I won that competition. And then I was like, there's an opportunity here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that competition where I was doing both was like maybe it's time to like fully pursue the mountain bike slopestyle path and see what's possible, because there's definitely something here.
Is there a part of you that misses the BMX, or can you still just get on a bike and ride for fun?
I miss it so much. There was also a point of time where I was like, BMX is my home, BMX is my foundation. I'll never leave. I'll never stop.
Yeah.
But then I had to like lock in and really get the training going for slopestyle. So I had to kind of put the BMX to the side. But actually, a couple of years ago, I took both bikes back to Woodward camp.
Yeah.
Rode the hardtail the first day, the big bike, and then I got on the BMX. And then I didn't get off the BMX. For the rest of the time I was there, I was like, this is just bringing me back to my roots, to my childhood. This is just the best thing ever.
Do you have any of your boys or your homies in the BMX world that is like, fuck, Nikolai, come back? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with the slopes? Like, come over back with us.
No, it's the other way around. I'm telling them like,
Yeah.
shit, because they got the insane tricks going. But for dirt, they have like the competitions outside the Supercross, the A1, and they have the X Games competitions, but there's not that many dirt competitions in the end. Whereas slopestyle, there's like a whole world tour, so it's like just a little bit more opportunity to compete and to show the skills, you know?
Mate, the slope style, it looks so cool. And I'm super intrigued to see what the training looks like, or hear about what the training looks like for it, because I imagine the best way to train is just to be on the bike and doing stuff. And being out on the course. Are you doing much like weights or recovery or anything outside of being on the bike?
So over the years, not really that much weights and training, just because there was a lot of competing and, like you said, like on the bike as much as possible. But actually, during COVID, and especially over the last few years, I've been doing a lot of shows, like almost a show tour in the beginning of the year over in Europe, and just hanging out with some athletes that are more on the physical training, more on the weight training, more on going to the gym multiple times per week, like gym day, riding day, gym day, riding day, this type of thing.
Yeah.
And I joined in for that, and then I definitely noticed that like the gym training and all that stuff was extremely beneficial for the strength.
It helped.
Yes.
In what way?
Just feeling stronger on the bike, feeling like you could pull for whatever trick you want. You can land completely flat, take the impact, take crashes and not be in pain from it. I feel like that's kind of why I not avoided, but didn't dedicate as much time to like the physical gym stuff over the years of the career, because I felt like I could take these crashes and bounce back up and be good, and the riding days would just be so hard. I'm like, wow, I'm riding so hard. There's no need to like also lift weights and do pull-ups and push-ups and this type of thing. But it is like, especially with the game being so elevated and the tricks being so hard and the features just getting bigger and bigger, like that bit of extra strength that you get with real training is game changer, bro.
Man, I imagine like even just being on a bike for a full day. Imagine you're probably pretty cooked by the end of the day, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, still, if we're talking about like Whoop stats, still the hardest days I can possibly have is like a competition day or like a show day.
Just because it's so long.
It's just impossible to go as hard in the gym and achieve the same
Mm.
level of strain, just because the engine isn't the same. I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe like a lifetime of riding, I can just ride and keep going and keep hammering the body, keep those muscles firing. And then if you go in the gym, like an hour and a half, 2 hours is like I'm done.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm done. So I just feel like it's the how I've built the strength in the body over the years. Like I can go so much harder on the bike than on anything else.
Man, I think you got a few runs on the board, yeah. Like I think you're fine. But I love that you bring up Whoop because we're obviously here. Like we're here in the Whoop HQ. It's cool, man. It's cool to come over here. I'm from Australia, like first time in the States.
How is
but
it?
I love the States, man. We did a weekend in New York. We got a week here in Boston, and we're gonna duck over to LA
Nice.
afterwards, man. But I love this place. Like we went to a Red Sox game.
Was it good?
Yeah, man, it was sick. Like we were right behind the home plate. The crew looked after us really well, so
That's awesome.
so we're doing it tough here.
That's
But mate, it was it's cool to come in here, and I think it's a great way to segue into like your recovery. Like,
Yeah.
I can only look at it from a rugby league point of view, right? A footy point of view. I imagine it's probably similar to the NFL boys, potentially maybe the hockey boys. But we would do a heap of ice baths just to like reduce the inflammation because it's a brutal, like we're bruised by the end of the game and training. Massages, sleep. What do you think is the biggest thing that you use your Whoop for in terms of recovery?
I think I use it just to see where I'm at and plan accordingly, competition based, like based on the statistics.
Yeah.
Because it definitely varies. Because you can have a hard day training, a hard day of practice, training that was very successful, and that requires training that would, in that case, you would need an ice bath, big stretching session.
So that's something you still do that. You're still doing ice baths.
For sure.
Yeah.
Ice bath is in Whistler. In Whistler, because we have 2 practices per day, usually morning and evening. We go to like the river there in Whistler as like the glacier melt, and that water is insanely cold.
Yeah.
So just getting the legs in there is massive to have that rejuvenation for the second practice. But what I'm trying to say is sometimes you hammer your body with a crash or with some slams, and that's like you need a different recovery in that sense.
Yeah.
Whereas like just the fatigue is kind of different. So riding, looking at the statistics, seeing how hammered you get, and then kind of planning the recovery and the sleep for what you need to do the next day. I feel like that is the key. Because I was just telling Jeremy, like it's so all systems go as a competition athlete, that you just like kind of autopilot to keep going always. But sometimes the statistics tell you should kind of chill out and not keep going.
Yeah.
But also sometimes it's like, oh no, I'm good.
Okay.
I keep going, So it's like sometimes it's hard to gauge your actual feeling and how your body is functioning without like statistics. You just like automatically assume that it's really good or assume that it's really bad when sometimes your mental judgment might be wrong. You feel me?
Man, I subscribe to that 100%. It's kind of like, I imagine we're probably pretty similar in the sense where you kind of need someone to tell you to pull it back a little bit. And that's the biggest thing that I use my Whoop for is like when I'm really pushing it and, there's heaps on, might be work, training, podcasting, whatever it is. And when you're cooking, you're like, I don't know if it's because we've been in a professional environment where it's just like, nah, you're willing to push that a little bit further. But then when you've seen you're in the red and you're in like a single digit and you're like, nah, and it might not be don't do anything. It might just be switch it up. Like it might be a swim, it might be a run, it might be something like that. Is that it? And do you have what I was leading into that with? Do you have a team as well that helps you with your recovery and training?
No,
No, it's just you.
it's just me. But in terms of these shows and events that we do, it kind of ends up being a team of athletes. That's because like we're competing against each other.
Yeah.
But we all kind of have to do the same prep. We're all riding the same practices together. We're all kind of using those windows of recovery in the same way. So there's not like a specific team catered to me, but I feel like there's a team of athletes that's always trying to get the best that they can out of the certain event or the certain days. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Mate, it's we talked about professional sport being a roller coaster, right? What do you think, and you've obviously been in the sport for so long. What do you think the career highlight is? Do you have one or two that really stand out that you might look back on in your career and think that was incredible? Like that's something that I'm super proud of.
Yeah, there's a few of them for sure. Uh, I would say winning the Triple Crown of slopestyle is probably the highlight, just because the moment um, I was the first one to win it. I was the last guy to drop on that certain day. Red Bull Droid is the most important competition in the sport. So there was a lot of things about that which make it the career highlight for me. But then there was also like first time landing the Twister 1080 in Rotorua. Uh,
Run me through that because there's a lot of brother. There's a lot of tricks that I'm not aware of. What was the lead up to that trick and why was that trick so important?
so before that trick, no one had ever done 3 rotations on a mountain bike. It was always 1 or 2 rotations. And in the winter, I was messing around with some 720 combos, cash roll combos, like some bar spins, rotating the bars, some tail whips, rotating the bike. And they weren't really firing me up. They weren't really working so good. Then I was kind of like, whoa, what if I add another rotation? And so I like trained in the foam pit to see if that was possible to like add another rotation and change the position of the body in order to make that rotation possible. And I was so like kind of freaked out by the move, even though it was working really good. I was so like freaked out by the move that I didn't like post any videos of it and kind of like didn't tell people about it. And then um, I did it on a soft landing in a show a couple of weeks before Rotorua. And then I arrived there in Rotorua, like, I'm going to try and do this. I have to make it to the final jump to do this. Like, end of the course, so you have to do, like, the full run
Yeah.
and make it to the bottom to do it. But I was like, if I arrive here at this jump, I will do it. And people knew that. And then, like, in our competition format, we have 2 runs. Best run counts. First run, disastrously bad. Disastrously bad. Like I did a backflip 360 off the first feature, over rotated, tire blew out, immediately had to stop. Couldn't go worse. Like just messing up on the first feature couldn't go worse. And so I dropped into the second run. I had to be like very composed because the hardest move of the run, like I'm saying, is in the end. And I just messed up the very beginning, which means I was already clearly thinking about the end.
Yeah.
And then dropped in for the second run. Everything was going well, everything on point. And then I arrived to the jump, and I'm like, holy shit, here we go. Have to do this move. And I did the rotation. Everything felt fine, and I just undercooked a little bit, like under-rotated. And I just held the bars for dear, like I pointed it straight and held the bars for dear life. The back end went like left, right, straight, and then I was like, "Oh my god, I've landed it!"
Yeah, man.
And I'll never forget. Like there was this shot of um, all the other riders standing up and watching like this little screen to see if I land it, and then they all celebrate for me. And then in those moments, I was like, holy shit, this is the best moment ever.
Yeah.
I just landed this dream move. My fellow competitors are celebrating for me. Insane moment. So, like, I don't know. I was younger in the sport at that time. I'd only been competing slopestyle, I think 2 years, maybe 3 years. I don't know. But I was fairly, like, young in the sport. And just that moment, doing the trick, kind of making a disastrous day like become a very successful one in the end, having the support of the competitors, that just like kind of built my motivations and my character and my place in this sport a lot, I think.
Mate, you can hear it. Like you can hear it in your voice. How like energized you are talking about it. Obviously, like when you're on the right track and you're dialed in when you have that energy talking about something. Yeah, and I can obviously see it from you. Before going into that run, are you confident that you're going to nail it? Like what I'm trying to pick apart your headspace and where you're at. Is it going to be, is it a 50-50 or is it like, nah, like I've got this?
The thoughts before the run are horrible. They go so back and forth. I don't know if it's like this for everyone, and I don't know if it's like this for you when you were playing rugby and stuff. But it's like at one moment you're like going through the motions. You're like, I got this. Like, there's no chance I mess it up. I got this, no doubt. Confident in this, confident in this. And then 5 seconds later, you're like, oh wait, but like, what if I have too much speed for this and like I fuck it up? Or like, oh shit, like if I don't land this, then like everything goes wrong. You kind of like immediately start to doubt everything that you just built up. Like you're like, I got this. No, I actually don't. And it just like goes back and forth, even in the start gate before dropping. Like you're like, okay, I'm good. I don't know, maybe I'm not. I don't know. It's just for me, it's a massive roller coaster every time. And then when you finally go, first like that final breath, and you go, then those thoughts kind of disappear, and you're kind of in the moment.
You're kind of in like, you're in that present flow kind of state. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it feels better than sometimes you like. For me, sometimes like I go and you go off the first feature and you land and you're like, okay, I'm fucking on. Like I'm on like never before. And sometimes you're like, whoa, what the hell? Like this is feeling terrible. You know what I mean?
How do you think you get to that point? Is there anything in the lead up, same routines? Because I'd love to get to the point of like how you build confidence. Like that's where I want to angle at. But how do you get to that flow state? Like, is it a matter of, have you noticed it, or is it just sometimes you're on, sometimes you're not?
It's a it's the more you visualize the success and things going right, the better.
Yeah.
Those thoughts that I was saying of things going wrong, completely unnecessary, need to be blocked out. Because if you visualize things going right, you land this, you stomp it, you're going on the next one. The fans are in the woods, they're cheering you on, you're fired up. You get to the end, you're celebrating with your buddies, like visualizing all those beneficial moments, those successful moments, it almost like helps you to manifest them actually happening. You get what I mean?
How do you block out the negative thoughts? Is it an awareness piece? Like when you catch it, that thought, being able to be like, that's not it, redirect positive. How do you block that thoughts out? Because we've all had them, right? Like we've all gone through them. How do we get to the point where it's like, nah, I need to catch it and move on?
Changing the visualization. Because it's all like, I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but I have like these scenario videos playing in my brain. It's like me watching myself do my own run in my brain. And then you see it going well, and then you see yourself crashing and everything failing and going drastically wrong. And then you kind of have to trick those thoughts out and be like, no, there's no chance of that happening. It's going to be so what I'm saying is like the more you can visualize the success, the more you can visualize the positive moments going perfectly good, the more likely they will happen. And like there's still going to be there's like nerves and those thoughts are like two different things, I feel like. Do you agree with that or no?
I agree, 100%.
Because like there's times that I've been 100% confident for a run, but also like way too nervous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm confident, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make this happen, but the butterflies, the pressure, you look around, fuck, so many people watching. Think about the people that send you messages. Wow, so many people online, or people that are rooting for me, like this type of thing. People hating, people think I can't do it. Like all of those things are still there, even in those moments of full-on confidence. You get what I mean?
Mate, I subscribe to that 100%. Lived experience for sure. Like the best games that I played was when I was coming in. I know I'd done a heap of work. I was confident. I sort of like, it's a bit of like, it felt like that inner arrogance. Like you're walking out there, but then there is that kind of underlying feeling of nerves of like, I want to get this win. How do I get this win? What if it doesn't happen? But then I think that confidence and sort of like that ego almost overrides those challenges. Do you agree?
For 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I feel like if we loop back to um, how we were talking about how you get prepared before, like when I was saying that I like being with the guys, I like watching the other runs. I feel like watching that kind of distracts you from those thoughts. You know what I mean? Because if you just stand there on your own listening to music, then those intrusive thoughts come in and you're like, get out, get out. But if you're there watching your fellow competitors, if they do a successful one, then you're like, we got this. We're on for today. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like we've been riding in practice. He's on. Like I'm on for sure.
Yeah.
Also, the contrary, if like you see them like crash out on the first feature, you're definitely like bummed out for them. But suddenly you're like, fuck. Like I feel like it was the end. It would be the end of the world if I crashed out. But then you're like, but he just crashed out. So it's like it's actually normal. So let's just like try to get this done. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So like watching the competition unfold in front of you kind of eliminates all those scenarios and just lets you live in the moment. I think living in the moment in sports is the most important thing.
Man, I love that.
You think so too?
Mate, 100%. Well, when you're present and when you're in the thick of it, like that's probably when you're going to have not only the most fun, but probably the best results. And even I obviously talk to a lot of athletes on this podcast, like, and I find that when the guys and girls, when they're most happy, that like even off the field or away from the track or whatever it is, that's probably when they're more likely to have positive results on the field or on the track. 100%. We talked a lot about crashing. Has there, and I know there has, but what do you think is the crash that's probably either scared you the most or has been the most gnarly?
Rampage one, Red Bull Rampage 2015, I think. Yeah, I fell off a cliff. I thought I was dying.
I saw the video,
Um,
man.
Yeah, things went not so wrong, and then drastically wrong. Like it was a minor mistake, a little too much front brake, that led to almost death.
For those who are listening, can you describe kind of what the run looked like and what were the events that led you to fall off a cliff, man? Because the footage is insane. I remember when I first saw that. To be honest, bro, I thought you were dead. I thought you were gonna die because it's a huge drop.
Yeah, it's super lucky to land on my feet, but we can set the scene a little bit. At Rampage, you go and you dig your own line. You have a team of diggers, and you guys team up. You choose your path down the mountain, and sometimes you got to knock some cliffs away, um, build some rock walls, and just build the sickest line you can down the course. And this line always involves a bit of risk. And so I had this zone where it was 3 drops in a row: first drop, second drop, third drop. And like I was saying, minor mistake, slowing down after the second drop, too much front brake over the bars. But Rampage is so gnarly and so exposed that you can't just like slide out. So it just like bike went this way and I went that way off the cliff. And like I was saying, this is a interesting one to label as the worst one because I was actually uninjured. I had some scrapes, I had some whiplash, but I was uninjured.
Concussion?
Maybe, I don't know. I finished the run.
That's what I
So
mean.
I feel like I don't know if that would have been possible if I was like I remember everything. I remember like those slow motion style moments of like the ground, the sky, what the hell? Like I remember those moments so vividly that I don't know if it's possible to have a concussion. I think I just like whiplash my neck super crazy.
Where did you like? You said it felt a little bit like slow motion.
Completely.
Do you have any like? Do you have any thoughts in that moment? Like, can you remember any thoughts of like
Yeah, yeah.
falling or when you hit the ground?
Yeah, it just felt like it took ages. It felt never ending. Like first trying to save it, realizing it had gone wrong, trying to stop myself from the cliff fall, um, realizing that I'm going off, seeing the ground, seeing the sky, hitting, whiplash. Like this happened like, but this looks like this feels like in my brain, in my memories, it feels like a shot from a movie where you're like, the camera's like from above and you're like, just like fall in complete slow-mo. And I don't know if the brain does that when you're experiencing super gnarly moments. But it definitely like it feels like that. So
You hear people who have like near-death experiences say that, hey, and it goes into this kind of like slow motion where you can see it all happening. It's like you talked about the video playing in your head. Like I'm sure you could still like see that happening, right?
sure.
Why did you finish the run? Or why did you keep going? Or not finish the run? Why did you keep going? Because you rode back down
Yeah, I
after?
was super angry. There was a lot of frustration in that moment.
From
Um,
what?
just like in when you're in competition and in a competition like Rampage, it's easy to mess up the run and forget about how like dangerous the whole run was. And like you realize that you've been there, you've been digging a line, like so much preparation goes into it. Not everyone has too many opportunities to ride Rampage. There's some guys that have rode 10 plus times and stuff, but some guys only get like one or two chances. So then when you crash in the run, like when I crashed in the run, I'm like, couldn't have fucked it up worse. So that's why I like got up and started walking around and I'm like, what have I done? Like this complete shameful experience. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like I forgot about the crash that had just happened. And I was like, I get back on my bike, finish this run, show that I'm here, like I belong here, like this type of thing, you know? So those were the emotions that I was experiencing, you know? And like even when I got to the bottom and like I was in the medical tent, I was still like pissed off. And I remember one of my closest homies, he rides Rampage a lot now, Reed Boggs. He arrived at the medical tent and he just arrived like this, like he had no words. Like he came in, he was watching from the other side. He probably thought that I had just died on a line that we spent a week building. So I can't imagine the emotions that he was feeling and everything. And so it's kind of like I forgot about how gnarly what what had just happened was, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's why I was able to just like get back on the bike and finish the run.
Does this stuff ever scare you at all?
Yeah,
It does.
sure. I know the danger more than anyone. So it's like completely scary.
So, so help me understand why keep doing it?
So many reasons. Like honestly, uncountable amount of reasons. Just like continuous motivation to keep pushing that level and like keep riding and improving and everything. But I also feel like there's a portion that you like look at some other riders, and their journeys, and it's hard to like crash and not get up and continue because you see I don't know if we talked about this already, but these riders that have these devastating injuries and just keep getting knocked down and they just put in the work to get back in and stuff. So seeing those journeys and stuff, if you think about that when you have those big crashes, it's you like don't feel bad for yourself, you know? You're like, I gotta get back up, I gotta keep pushing, all that. And then also like uh I've had some riders like come to me and say that like that my ability to crash and like get up and keep going has inspired them to do the same in their situation, or some young riders that them and their family say that they watch me ride and watch my stuff and that inspires them to do their riding. Like that makes all the crashing, all the pain that you experience, all the suffering that you think happened, like when you hear those things, when you hear that feedback, you're like, this is why I'm doing it.
Bro,
It's a greater purpose.
I love that. I can. That's probably going to be my favorite part of this conversation, man, because that's the whole reason for this podcast. Yeah, like it's a mental health and sport podcast. You know, we have conversations with people who we look up to and who inspire us, in order to break down the stigmas of mental health, whatever that might be. It might be fear, you know, crashing, and it's so cool that you've got, you know, all these other team riders and Groms coming up and who are looking at you, being like, you know, Nicholi got over this. Why can't I? You know, and I think like athletes, they're so influential in the community. I'd love to understand what it looks like in the mountain biking world in terms of mental health? Because I can only relate it to Australia and in the sporting sense in Australia. And I think we've come a long way from being that old school, like, uh, not like, I don't want to talk about it, just get on with it. And while I think there's a point to just getting on with what's going on, I'm a strong believer in, being around your boys, talking about what's going on. And I think those conversations have changed over the years in Australia. What does it look like for you in your community?
You mean the conversations regarding mental health?
Yeah.
Um, it's it's hard to say because in a sport like the one that we're in, like everyone seems good for the most part, but you know that that's not really always the case. Everyone has their own um, mind games that they play with themselves. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, but I just feel like in mountain biking, a lot of this is avoidable with like the effort to not isolate yourself, because like all the things that I've said that help me with my mental state and my mental health is like not isolating myself. Like even if we're saying as simple as like having a conversation with a young rider and their mom or dad, like, and hearing that feedback, like you feel like you're not in your own world, you feel like you're riding for a greater purpose, or isolating yourself before a competition would make you have these crazy thoughts, but then suddenly you're watching your buddies compete and you're watching your fellow competitors compete, and suddenly you don't feel so alone anymore. You feel like you're part of this group unit effort and that people are on that same level as you. So I feel like the best thing you can do to improve the mental health, especially in a world of mountain biking, is like not isolate yourself and just like have those interactions that make you feel like, you know what, there's like a greater purpose to this. You feel me?
Man, I love that. I love that because I think we all go through stages of isolation, yeah, where you might be in the busiest city, you might be in a team environment, you might be, knocking around with crew, but you might feel not so a part of it, probably feel like you might not be able to, even have a conversation with someone. So I love that, man. I love that so much. Who are the people that you lean on? Is there a group of mates, family that you lean on when things aren't going so great?
Um, I have a good relationship with my family. My family and I have always been close. My younger bro, my mom, my dad, and I, we've always been like super close family. So that's obviously nice because they've always been super supportive. Um, they watch the competitions. They're texting me after my competitions, telling me their thoughts, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, like the fellow competitors that I have is the people that I really need to be in the best space mentally, because I feel like we're the only people that really like understand each other's struggles. It was probably the same for you with fellow athletes in your sport. Like there's certain struggles and pains and doubts that you go through, but then if you hang out with people that experience that same exact emotion, if even if you're not talking about it all the time,
Yeah.
you sort of have this like this natural connection with these people. You agree?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think the people who are most closest to you in terms of occupation or in terms of living situation or whatever that is, they understand you more than anyone. Yeah, so you can rely, you can lean on them. They know what's going on, and you might have people who have the best intentions and are willing to talk. But I was just like, if I'm going to talk to someone about my footy problems, I'm talking to a coach or someone who's probably guys who are older in the field who get it. A big part of this conversation I've picked up is resilience, man. Like the ability to overcome injuries, crashes, being around good crew. Has there been any time throughout your professional career where you didn't think you'd be able to get through it, but you still did?
Um, that's an interesting question. I had some crazy feelings like that after getting released from the hospital after breaking my wrist.
Mm.
So I was in Australia actually, in Cairns when I broke the wrist. I was competing at Crankworx in Cairns. Um, I did my first run, it was fine, but I was sitting in fourth, so I was like, I'm gonna go for a run. I try to win this shit, you know. Tried the gnarliest move I could think of on the first feature of the course, come up short, over the bars, broken arm, broken wrist. everything is fine through this. Through those moments, all positive. A lot of pain, but all positive. Like, you know what? I went for it. Tried to risk it all. Didn't work out. I'm injured. It's fine. I'm in good care. In the hospital, the same. All drugged up and stuff. Like, first of all, on so many drugs to get the pain away, and then they put me to sleep to put the wrist back into place. They snapped it back into place amazingly, actually. But then, like, as I left the hospital in those next few days, had like some crazy feelings of doubting that I would be able to get back to the same level or get back to the headspace of trying to win a competition. Because I was like, man, like, I just tried to win, and now I fucked up my body, and I'm all broken, and now I'm not going to be able to recover from this, and never going to be able to get in the headspace of trying to win again. You know, like those post-injury doubts when the road to recovery seems bad, you've ruined your whole season, and you just seem to like have ruined your own mental state. Like, those are some horrible moments to experience. And for me, it was just like my arm and my wrist. I was walking around fine. So for those for those athletes that have like those more savage injuries, like those feelings, I'm sure are amplified tenfold. Like just those moments of doubt. So luckily, not so many doubts over the years, probably because of the mental strength that we talked about earlier that was built up from my father. Like never really feeling bad for myself. Always like can get back, I'm good. But then the post-injury feeling's tough, I feel like. You have that?
Yeah, yeah, 100%, mate. I was medically retired from rugby league. I was 24, so I was still super young. But so I know exactly what you're saying, man. I know exactly what you're saying. Even going through like, busted everything. I feel like we could do a whole podcast just on talking about our injuries, brother. But not the play at the moment. I want to talk about the steps that you took out of that, because you said, you had all these thoughts about like, oh, I had it, like, I'm not going to be able to be the same rider. I want to keep going, like whatever it is. What did you do to get out of that? Because I look at you now, like you obviously look super confident, like you back, like what the steps that you took to get to where you wanted to go?
The same exact thing as I just talked about. Even though I wasn't competing, I still went to these next competitions to watch like my fellow competitors compete. I was doing some media work and stuff, but just not isolating myself. You know what I mean? Because if I was to be sitting at home, feeling bad for myself, having even more doubts, like that would have destroyed me further and further. But reuniting with my boys, hearing those, like I said again, hearing those people that have known me for a while saying, can't wait to see you back, you got this. The lack of isolation just saved that mental space, saved the whole thing.
Bro, I love that. I think, man, this has been such an incredible podcast. Like, I've really enjoyed this, man. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on? That we didn't touch on today?
No, I have a question for you about Australia Boston theory. I don't know, not theory. I've heard that people say the Aussie accent and the Boston city accent are similar. Do you agree with this or no?
I'm not sure, mate. I can only talk to the crew that we've spoken to, and
You
everyone.
haven't heard some real deal Boston accent?
I don't think so, man. We've only been here for a couple of days, but everyone's been so lovely and been so nice. But to be honest, I haven't been paying attention to the accents, man.
Okay, interesting. Because there's like I don't have it because I grew up in the suburbs and my first language was Russian and stuff, so I don't really have much of a Boston accent, and not everyone does, but
Yeah.
like just from videos online and stuff,
Yeah.
if like, you see someone talking with an Aussie accent and a Boston accent, you go in the comments, people are saying that the accents are very similar. I'm a little bit skeptical. I hear some similarities after spending time in both places, but
Yeah,
pay attention to it.
Yeah, well, now I'm going to be conscious of it now. We've got a couple more days here in Boston, so mate, I'm pumped. I'll definitely be looking out for it. Mate, Nikolai, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate you not just coming on here, but just being so open and vulnerable about your whole story, your whole journey, the crashes, the ups and downs. Man, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and mate, I'm going to be looking out for what the next couple of years look like for you, brother.
Thanks so much, man. Good meeting you, and yeah, this conversation has been rad.
Cheers, bro.